Hello, everyone. Welcome to the series of interview with cybersecurity experts. I'm Tasheva, your host, and we have the pleasure to welcome Stephan Hellmann, founder and CEO at NewBe. Hi, Stephan.
Hi, Eva.
Stephan comes with deep understanding of ICT and cyber regulation and implemented strategies and policies that ensure companies remain compliant and resilient in the face of cyber threat. And this is indeed the core of the objective of DORA, the Digital Operation Resilience Act. This is why we invited Stephan today to share with you free advice on DORA implementation. What are the tricks you could use and what are the traps to avoid? Stephan, many of our companies listening today, they have probably not been even aware that they're in the scope of DORA, or they have just figured out how to start the DORA implementation. What would be the first step for them?
Yes. So this is a very good point that you bring, because indeed the first is to understand, okay, are you in scope or not? This is clearly defined in the law, in the regulation. In Europe, so near all financial institutions are in scope for DORA. There are 21 different types of financial institutions in scope, so banks, insurance company, credit institution, payment institution, and so on. So yes, generally the company, they have access to legal advice, and what I would recommend is to check with the legal advice if and how far they need to be compliant with DORA. Generally, there is only one way to implement: is implement it all. But yes, indeed, that's generally the first question that I get is, okay, actually not even a question, it's the first assessment. No, we don't need to be compliant with DORA because we are a payment institution. To which my answer is, because you are a payment institution, you need to be compliant with DORA. So voilà, there's a kind of misunderstanding. But if you want to start with DORA, actually you need to start with DORA. The most important is really to have a plan and to know where to start with. And so, for instance, what I want to say first, also before that, DORA is nothing new actually. DORA is about cyber and IT resilience, and this is important. So it's not only about cybersecurity. When you get an attack, a cyber attack, okay, how resilient are you and how quickly can you recover? It's also about IT management, hygiene, because if, for instance, you don't update your system and you are still running, for instance, on Windows 2000, you know that your system is going to break down, and there's nothing to do with cybersecurity. It's just bad IT management. So DORA is about those two. And again, this is nothing new. The only thing that DORA is doing is they are putting some rules for everyone in Europe to do the same things, because they noticed that there were some financial institutions who were doing really good risk management, some really bad, but everyone has to do resilience. Everyone has to do have to have a business continuity and disaster recovery plan and all of stuff. So this is what DORA is stating. Okay, you do it all, but on the same level. So that's a bit just in short about DORA. And how do you start? The first important point is what is called in DORA critical and important functions. Translated in what are actually the critical services for financial institution, in which if the service is not available anymore, either the institution falls or the economy has a huge issue, or clients or whatever. So it really has a huge impact. It's not something that, okay, you are down for 1 hour, it's really something that has an impact on the society, on the institution itself. And so the institution are really to identify what are our critical services, or critical project or whatever that needs to remain available all the time, or should be available as quick as possible. And then when you identify your what I call the critical services, again, I use my own rhetoric, my own wording in this. But when you have that identify, what you need to identify is all the processes that are supporting those services. Because yes, you have one service, but you have many services, many processes per service. So once you have identified all those processes, you need to identify which one of those processes are critical. Because again, DORA is only about critical and important function, critical and important services, critical and important processes, and so on. So it's really about the criticality of it. So once you identify your critical services, then you identify your critical processes, and then you need to identify the applications that are supporting those critical processes. And again, once you identify all those applications, you will need to identify, okay, which one are critical and which one not. And then in the end, you have your scope. So critical services, critical processes, critical application, you're sure that you are complete. And why do you need critical application? Because yes, you need to support them, but also you need to know the third-party service provider who are supporting those applications when it's outsourced, because you will need to do third-party risk management with that. So to sum up, again, you have critical services, critical processes, critical application, critical service providers. And that's the huge exercise to do. It's some institutions are already far in it, but even then it costs 6 to 9 months to have this exercise done, because you want to be complete and you need to be complete. But for organization, I also have an organization which didn't put a lot of emphasis on this. And so yes, they need to start now. It's a lot of work. So you need a lot of resources, you need to know how to do that, a lot of budget for that, but you cannot start DORA without having this.
No, this reminds me, we had a talk with Anne Leslie also on the topic of DORA, and when you say you need to identify your critical processes, that is a typical business question. So it wouldn't come from the security team.
No.
It wouldn't come from the IT team, certainly. One has to involve management in it, to involve also different product owners to be able to have the complete scope, indeed, what is in my organization that is needed to deliver the services. And often in organizations, you might have blurred responsibilities.
Yes.
Okay, one person is responsible for the product, but another person is responsible for security or for servicing. How do you manage, or how do you propose companies to manage these conflicts or blurred borders and responsibilities?
Yes. Now, governance is really key in here. You need really to have a strong governance in place, or to put it in place. And that's my role, for instance, as program manager. When I go anywhere I go, first thing, I want to have a governance in place to know, okay, who is holding the budget also, but also who is accountable and responsible, because you need to make a difference between those. DORA makes it clear also that senior management is accountable. So all the C-level, CEO, CEO, they are accountable for DORA compliance, meaning that they need to provide the resources also necessary to become compliant. But then you have the responsible, and those are the different teams. And though DORA is mostly 95% is about cybersecurity and IT, but it involves also the business, because when we come back to a service, a critical service, it's a business service always to the client. For instance, the payment. Payment is a critical service for. It's not the IT who owns this service. It's the bank, it's the business, and that's why also generally what you have in many organizations, you have also for an application, for a service, an application, you have a business owner of the application. For instance, a payment application, it's owned by the business because it's being developed or bought because the business needs it for his business with the client. And then you have what we call a kind of IT custodian. So the IT is supporting the application, supporting the business owner with the application. So that's why generally when I go to organization, I try to identify, okay, who is the business owner of the service or the application, who is the custodian, the IT custodian. Generally, there's a security also in it. And then I put them around the table. And when I need information about this, okay, we are going to do that. They are all the three around the table. Because you cannot do it only with IT. You cannot do it only with security, because in the end, a business is accountable, always. Unless it is a specific application that is only for IT, which happens. I'm talking, for instance, Active Directory, something where you manage all the users within an institution, a company. This is typically something for IT and security, so there's no business owner on that. But a payment application or a mortgage application, whatever it is that is critical to the organization, then it's owned by the business. So the accountability is by the business. So that's key to unblur actually the responsibilities. Business is accountable, IT and security are responsible to implement. So, and that's it. And that makes it a lot easier because in the end, yes, the application owner, the business owner want to know what's happening, how secure they are, and how resilient we are. And IT and security needs to actually report about this. So for me, that's key. That's really key.
So this is probably the answer of my next question, but if because there are different steps to pass through, it seems that it's a complex project and it takes time and a lot of resources, but eventually is there like silver lining, any key that you say, okay, if you don't have this, you would not be going in the right direction with DORA? What would be the key to DORA?
Yes, there are, from head, I know there are many things actually, because the first again is the governance. If you don't have a governance in place, actually even further, I would say the will to become compliant. If you don't have the buy-in from the management, senior management to become compliant, you won't get the budget, you won't get the resources, you won't get the time to do that, then there's no point in starting it, because you know that people will, the teams will do the work, but they won't get even the time, what I will say, and even the recognition, because they are doing this, because to the management, it's not needed. So you need to have first a strong management understanding and will to become compliant. And it's a regulation, DORA is a regulation, so it needs to be done. So second thing, then when this is done, then you need to have a strong governance in place. Everywhere where I go, I put the governance in place to know, okay, to whom we report, who is the sponsor of this this project or the program. Generally, it will come to the COO, CIO, depending on the organization. Sometimes it's even the CEO, CFO, it doesn't matter, but it always has to be a C-level because they own the budget. And then you dispatch in the different team. Okay, so if we look at this, DORA is about IT and cyber resilience. So I just talked about it. So you need to have IT resilience and cyber resilience teams in a scope, but also from the business. Which application do we sell? Okay, which services? Again, I'll come back to what I said at the beginning. Which services are critical? So who are the owner of those services? And then you have all these people around the table, virtual table, because there are a lot of people, but at least you know per service all the governance that is set in place, because then when you will identify and define the activities that need to be put in place to become compliant, then you dispatch all those activities to the different owner who dispatch themselves to the team that need to perform the work. And that's how you need to go. If you don't have a good governance in place, forget it, the program will never finish, actually maybe not even start. The good thing, the third thing which is important is resources. You can have, once you have the agreement of the management to do it, then you have the how can I say, the governance in place. You need to have the resources, and resources is in budget, of course, money, in people, because generally it's something that comes on top of on the what you do the running, what we call running the organization, but you have also change the organization. And in DORA, with some requirements that are set in the regulation or in the RTS. I think you covered RTS already before in another session. So RTS is just to make sure that people understand. So DORA is the regulation itself, but for some part of the text of DORA, there are extra text, regulatory text that have been put, like we call that regulatory technical standard or regulatory implementation standard, or sometimes guidelines also. But those are just to make sure that some part become more detailed and you have more requirements. So there are many of such texts. But in those texts, you have a lot of requirements, and many requirements require changes in the bank. So it's not the run, but you need to change. So you need to put a budget in place for that. And we shouldn't forget that normally we should be compliant by 18th of January 2025, which is a challenging deadline. But again, you need to have budget, you need to have people, you need to have the time to do that, meaning that you need to choose, okay, that we're not going to do because we need to focus on that. And again, this is a management decision also. They need to agree. And then the fourth thing that is important, you need to have a plan. Because, okay, you can have all of these, all the resources, but if you don't know where you are going to start with and how you're going to do that and the roadmap, then again, there's going to be an issue in a sense that, you will do everything at the same time, but you will not finish anything, and maybe you will have to come back. So no, it needs to be really a strict program management, a strict plan to do that. And the fifth point which is really important is to have someone who understands DORA. That's important because even though DORA is nothing new, it's about cyber resilience, but there are really strict requirements in the law and in the RTS set out that need to be taken into account. You cannot just do that, okay, you know what, yeah, cyber resilience, okay, I will put more resilience, but no, you need to make sure that what is in the text is also answered. So, and for instance, also a simple example, IT incident reporting, for instance. We all do that already. In financial institutions, they are really heavily regulated, so we have to do that all the time. But the threshold have been set lower now. So we need to report more, and also on more topics. For instance, what is the impact on the economy? What is the impact on this? And so those are all information that we don't report for now. And also you need to put that in place also. So that's why it's really important to have an understanding of DORA to make sure that you do things first time right, because it will cost a lot. And if you don't do it right, it will cost you even more.
I see. Yes, indeed. So this is typically for what we do with clients is regulatory texts. They're not secret. They're published. They're available. But go figure what it means for you, for your organization. That is a whole mastery that sometimes very interesting. But this is all about our profession, applying it in practice. And then you spoke about resources and you spoke about project management. But we also know it's kind of a long and a big project. So what would be your advice, assuming we have the management buy-in, so C-level stands there ready to rock DORA? Would you have everything taking assumptions, designing the plan, the resources necessary, or would you break it into smaller pieces and go as you figure out more? What is your best practice? How did you tackle it?
The thing is, the first thing that you need to do once you have the buying and the from the management is to set someone, like I said again, because for me it's more a program than project management, as a program manager. Internally, they have a very good people who can do that, or externally, it doesn't matter, but you need to have and the knowledge of DORA and how to run a project or a program. This is really important because mostly with this one, the deadline is really short, so you don't have time to waste. So to come back on what you were just asking is that, yes, what we just said, so you need to have a clear plan, but how do you make a plan? You're not going to go just, okay, you know what, let's start with this and we see where we end up. No, you need to make sure that you analyze all the different texts of law and what do they want, and also translate, okay, what does it mean for us? Do we have this? Oh, this we don't have, so this part we can leave out, for instance. I will take, for instance, an example of the fourth chapter, third-party risk management. You need to review all the contract to put some DORA compliant clauses. Like was before with GDPR, it's the same thing now with DORA. You need to have for every critical third party, so you need to identify them. You need to have an exit strategy, and you need to test it also, so you need to have a plan for that. So all of this costs a lot of time. It's not something that you're going to do, okay, you know what, I will try for one, we'll see what happens, and then we might do. No, you need to identify them all, and you need to plan, okay, I have, let's say, 50 critical third parties. Okay, it takes me so much time to do one. I have so many people in my team, so it's just a mathematics actually. You just calculate, okay, in 1.5 years, I will be ready with those contracts. Or if I need to be shorter, I need to hire so many people. So this is something. And then you have to do this with everything. Risk management also, the first chapter, ICT risk management. You need to have a framework. Depending on the size of your organization, you have either a simplified or the full framework. But you need also to identify. Generally, organizations have already an ICT risk management framework, but you need to review it. You need to implement maybe new things in it. You need to have also a register of a third party, a register of services, a register of all those things. This needs to happen. So yes, you cannot do everything at the same time, but you need to think it well beforehand. What are you going to do? And depending on the size of the organization and the amount, the number of resources in people that you have to perform things, yes, you can do things parallelly, or you start first with governance and then you go down with the quick win, and then put a plan in place for the rest. I mean, I'm working with organizations where, okay, there is a plan to become compliant within 2 years. because there are a lot of resources and there are a lot of things to do, but there are also smaller organizations who have a plan to become compliant within 3 to 5 years because there are no resources. An organization with 60 people, even though they are small, they need to implement a lot of things. And generally, the small organizations are not the ones who are focusing so much on having IT and cybersecurity management done clearly, because yes, even though they must, but they don't have the resources for that. And generally, the time and the budget goes into servicing customers, which is the key for those organizations. So yes, you need to have a plan, and the plan is generally, if you have a good program or project manager and someone from legal who understand also DORA, for instance, then normally you should have a good plan on table that should be validated by senior management, and then you have the go, and then only you go.
So far we spoke about, okay, you could, that's the good way to do it, but there certainly are common traps or mistakes that you maybe have seen or maybe have avoided. So can you share so that our audience can also learn from your experience and avoid these traps?
Yes, but there are different kind of traps. So the first one that generally comes to me is, yes, but DORA is not applicable to us. Okay, so prove that to me. And then you have credit institution, payment institution, and so they are clearly defined in DORA that it's applicable, but because there's a lack of understanding. And actually the most, where this comes the most from is from the insurance sector. Insurance still don't understand why they should be DORA compliant and why DORA is applicable to them. So yes, but yeah, it is defined such. So yes, so make sure to not spend time. Sometimes I have talk about one organization who for 1 year, this organization is still fighting the fact that they should be DORA compliant while actually they need to. So don't spend this time fighting something, just invest already, make sure that you accept that you have to become compliant and then become compliant. The second thing is that what you often see, which is also logical, to identify critical services or important and critical functions. Often companies use what we call business impact assessment, which is really good because it's a starting point, and business impact assessment should be done. The only thing is, generally, business impact assessment are done what I call locally, so per department. So it's good, but it's not always applicable to when it comes to an organization, a bank or credit institution, critical service. I will take an example, for instance, HR. If you are going to assess the HR department, of course they will have an application and the recruitment, whatever, they will have an application. If it's down, they cannot recruit, they cannot perform their work. So of course they will say it's critical to us. And it will be in a BIA, so business impact assessment, as critical. Totally logical. But now, if you take this application, because it's in a BIA, so it's set as critical, and you take it in the full scope of the DORA, for instance, you say, okay, yes, I identify all my applications which are critical, we took all the BIA, and this is there. It's fine. But then, if the organization is down, and you need to have a survival mode, for instance, you receive a heavy cyber attack, you cannot use your system, you have a ransomware, so you need to restart somewhere else. The HR application is not the first one that you want to start again, because it's not what's going to put your business up or down or something. No, it's just about the recruitment. So my point is that when you assess critical services for the organization, it should be for the organization as a whole, not per department, and they should be this BIA done on organization level to identify. And because I'm just giving this example because this happened in 2 companies where I was going to help for DORA, and that was in this. So in the list there was the HR application because they just took this from the BIA, which as such is not wrong, but then you need to have this exercise of common sense. Wait, do I really need this application to start again? Because when you go in survival mode, you want to restart only the applications that are really necessary for the survival of the organization. And that's actually DORA again. So this is the exercise that needs to be done. So the third thing is what I just mentioned also, I told you that we should go from critical services to processes to application. But generally, organization jumped when they understand their services, they jump directly to the applications. Meaning that you forget the services, and the risk here is that you forget applications because you don't know your full process. When you have the full process design, you know, okay, this application is coming there, this application is coming there, this application is coming there. So you don't forget anything. Once you go directly to, for example, payment service, okay, we have this application, but maybe you will forget, oh yes, but there is also this authentication application that we need, because if we don't authenticate, we cannot access this application. But if it's not in your process, you will forget it. It won't be in a critical application. Next time you have to start a survival mode. Ah shit, we cannot access our application because we don't have the authentication. So you see, so that's really important to have a full process in car. The fourth one, the fifth one after, and then but the fourth one for me is that companies think that they can do that, you know, in between. Like we say in French, between the soup et les patates. That it's just something that's going to be we can do on top of. It's just a small thing. No, it's not, because even I mean I've been working with really big institution, but also small one. Even big institution who have many different things in place already, it's a lot of work. So don't underestimate the work that is that will be that is involved in this. And the last one, which is also for me key from my point of view, is that you have groups, institution, financial institution that are in groups. For instance, you have a head office, for instance, I don't know, in France, in the Netherlands, or wherever it is, and they have entities all over Europe. The thing is, the whole group need to be compliant with DORA. So sometimes what you see is that the head office leaves it up to the entity, the local entity, to become compliant on their own, which is maybe a strategic choice, whatever, but it creates competition. It creates also mostly overhead costs, because you need, you know, if you have something in Luxembourg, in Belgium, in Poland, I don't know, in France, everyone, they will all interpret DORA on their own way. There will not be one uniform way of interpreting DORA. And so they will all put their own things in place with their own budget. In the end, you will have more costs than necessary, and you might not even have a normal one uniform way of DORA compliance. And the national banks, they discuss with each other. They also look, okay, where is the head office, where is the entity? Because when you identify your application, for instance, and your service, they also look at, okay, this service is hosted in Belgium, but are there any other entity who are using it? Yes, okay, then we need to go to this country. And then when they will see that, well, the level of compliance is different between entities, how can that be? There will be even more work to redo this thing. So my advice would be on this one also, uniform this process. It should come from a head office or whatever, or you put all the entity together and you come to a complete plan, but it should be done on yes, from a uniform point of view, so that you have the same thing, the same implemented in all the entities.
What you discussed now is very familiar to me. Coming from EU affairs, we have had 25 years building the single market, and we are not there yet, right? When you live in different countries, of course, there is difference in maturity, difference in language, culture. Some cultures are more prone to risk, others are following the rule by the letter. So eventually you end up with very diverse. We like diversity, but also not very harmonized implementation. Probably there is a room for authorities as well. I know for a single market digital cybersecurity, we do have a lot of group like knowledge and information sharing. For instance, I give example was an ISAC, Information Sharing and Analysis Center, where sectorial organizations come together and share cybersecurity, whether it's best practices or challenges that they have with regulation, with standard, with security. Sometimes even it's a red phone, like I'm under attack, like be prepared. That's what's going on, because eventually we share the same challenges and we can help each other preparing. So it's true not only for entities which are united in a way formally, but also could be interesting for authorities to put this consortium kind of group for support on DORA implementation, so that we make sure that no one is left behind. So we kind of share the knowledge, but also move together in the right direction.
Yes, but
Yeah.
this I'm not sure that there is something at group, at group level, at authority level for the implementation of DORA. What I do know is that they are working on this is the fifth chapter. Actually, they are working on collaboration to actually also having financial institutions collaborate with each other and
Indeed.
to warn also each other indeed when there is a cyber attack coming. But for this, you also have local a solution. For instance, in Belgium, you have also something like the Cybersecurity Coalition of Belgium, who warns also the different institutions, not only bank, but every organization when something is coming. So, but yes, but the thing is that so far, for instance, exchange between financial institution is not mandatory. No, it's they say, okay, you could do it, you should do it, but it's not mandatory. But I know that there is something going on at entity level, but that's more about authority level. But it's more, I think, about understanding also DORA in the same way, for instance, to make sure that all national banks are not doing the same thing, because when they will need to assess as of next year, you make sure that it's not, that we
The
can
same. Yeah.
exactly. So it's also a uniformization, but at their level.
Yes.
But I don't think that there is anything about the implementation to make
I
sure.
haven't heard as well, and I'm aware we have the European financial ISAC. So in theory, we have the ISAC for financial sector, but I'm not aware of any discussions yet ongoing on sharing best practices or tools or procedures that one can take.
Yes.
Might be a good tip for them to
Yes.
adopt. And of course, they can have us if they need.
Yeah, voilà. I think that practically, I think it will come at the end of the assessment when they will come to audit as of next year. They will all have, I guess, the same framework to audit the financial institution, and then you will see, okay, that's the level that you need to.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they will have a report also, I think, at ACB level. So
It is good. So we have had the same level of reporting for NIS, Network Information Security Directive, from ENISA, who is the authority responsible on the state of implementation. Very useful to draw lessons learned, the common mistakes or the common issues, but also it comes with a delay. It comes with they could not be too specific. It's not individual to an entity. So one has it's still very aggregate data. It's not as practical as one might get from peers in the sector. But okay, so we move through the implementation. We know what to do, what not to do. But when do we stop? Are we going to forever with DORA implementation program, or is there a moment when one can say, okay, I have done this thing, so now I know I am compliant, I implemented it, I'm good for the time being?
yes, but actually, there's only one organization who can tell you that, and it's the national bank. When they come to audit and they will have no comment anymore on what they saw, and that said yes, then they will say, okay, you're done. As an organization, what you can do is that yes, you define your objective, you define all the activities that you want to implement, and then once you're done, okay, you are done, and then you wait. But you have, there's only one authority about this, and those are the national banks. And so yes, you have also another way for me to see that is what we call the third chapter is the threat-led penetration testing that needs to be performed also. So when this testing will be done and there are no findings on the end of the testing, then you can say for yourself, okay, I've got this big part already also compliant, you know. But yes, that I still have to see where this when this is going to happen, because the problem is it's not only about this, but the cyber landscape and cyber threat landscape is evolving so quickly. Every day there are new attacks. Every way now also with AI, they are using AI to perform cyber attack. Yeah, how do you protect yourself against this? You know, this is not even tackled in a DORA, for instance. So in any way, yes, you need to have those requirements in place. You need to make sure that everything what is said in the text, what is applicable to you, is implemented. And then the auditor will tell you, will say, okay, yes, that's okay or not. And knowing auditor, there will always be findings, but that will be more fine-tuning. The most important now is to show, okay, we are implementing this, we make the effort because we know what we need to do. And when it's fine-tuning, you know, then you are good. But when you need to put some really key things still in place, then there might be an issue with the auditor next year. But so far, yes, this is this. And yes, for me, yes, there's something, nobody else who can tell that. I cannot tell you as a program manager neither when I go to my client, okay, now you are done. I can just say, okay, all the activities that we defined, we implemented. Is there anything that we are missing? You know, then you talk with the legal expert, the other expert on the field. You know, sometimes I know I have a client in France. They even talk between banks, between each other, and then they go to the ECB on their own. You know, to when they want to have something to have a kind of idea, understanding this is what they need to do, and then they just do the same because again, in the end, DORA is for everyone the same. So there's no competition about this. So that's what bank also understands. So they want to see with each other, okay, how far are we? But it's still a kind of secrecy world. You know, you don't want to open too much yourself to others, or the same for other financial institutions. But in the end, yes, you need to be compliant because if everyone is secure, then your whole market is secure, and that's the purpose actually of this, of DORA, of what the European Commission wants. Because in the end, DORA is decided by the European Commission. They want to have a very strong, secure, single market in Europe. So yes.
Indeed. No, I agree. There is a mean to a purpose, right? The purpose is to have better security. And also there are a lot of elements, as you say, okay, there's the program, there's the actions, there's the audit, but it is designed in a way that it's a governance. It's a living structure that you then have to maintain, to update, to face the threat. So in a way, one can imagine we have a CISO now in organization to have also the DISO, DORA officer, because it is important to put in place, but it's equally important to maintain after to continue to be effective. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge experience. I think it was very useful.
Could I add maybe a last thing, because we just on what you just said, because yes, CISO is important, of course, in every organization for about cybersecurity. But I think if we are talking about DORA, what you will see emerging more and more, my guess is that you will have more now cyber resilience manager or resilience manager, because you had a lot of business continuity manager and disaster recovery manager, whatever. But this is all about resilience. This is something not new, but it's an all other way to put cybersecurity and IT management, you know, in a view. So you will need to have those people in place. And another thing that is really important also to understand is that DORA implementation is not only about what we call the first line of defense. You have different line of defenses but all the three lines of an organization have to be involved. So the first line to implement, the second line to make the policies, to review, okay, is everything according to the policy that we defined, and the third line to perform internal audit. So third line of defense is internal audit, second line of defense is risk management, and the third line of defense to perform the audit. But also in the DORA, it is specifically stated also by the regulator that internal audit needs to use their right to audit clause that is put in the contract with the third-party service provider. So meaning that the whole organization need to be involved in this. And so the regulator will also look into that. How often is this right used? Because yes, you can have, you know, nowadays when you have a third-party risk management performed or third-party risk assessment performed, you have, okay, yes, you send a questionnaire, the third party filled it in, and you believed about what it is. You know, even if it's not in place, you believe it because it's done like this. But now it's not. DORA doesn't allow this anymore. You really need to make sure that the third party is also compliant with DORA, otherwise you are not allowed to work with this third party anymore. But also that everything what is stated is also true, and that's why the internal audit comes. And either you externalize it or either you do it yourself. That's not a problem, but you need to have this involved also. So like you said, the governance part is really important, to have all the different parts involved so that it's not only an IT and security story, but it's a full organization story.
Oh, very interesting. I mean, of course, this is what we do. We do the audit, so we're happy there's going to be business, but at some point we have to see is there a way to do it more efficiently, because the scale we're speaking about, it is huge for Europe. But again, I'm glad that we have experts to help in this aspect, to shed the uncertainty around DORA, and to also probably incentivize those companies that are still in denial that, okay, it is kind of normal business practice. It's good for you. It's not only regulatory imposed, but also it's a requirement to do business in Europe. So as everyone knows, that's the game, and we have to follow. Thank you so much. Stay with us, subscribe for updates, and check our playlist. Plenty of other interesting topics already discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.